Hey guys, I'm Ryan. You're watching Automotive Chaos, and today, obviously, we are not in our usual spot in the garage. We're in the truck, going to my buddy Steve's house because last week we took about a 9-hour road trip and picked up another truck. So we should be there in a couple minutes, and as soon as we get there, I'll walk you guys around. And today's focus is really just going to be getting the truck running and driving. And then after that, we have some cosmetic things we're going to do, a couple things we want to fix up. It should be a fun project, so I'll see you guys in a couple minutes when we get there. All right, here it is. 95 Saturn. No, I'm just kidding. Here's what we picked up. So this is an 85 K10, obviously the long bed edition. A little bit of nature's finest paint protection, also known as moss. Give you guys a quick walk around, check out the interior under the hood. Definitely had a cheap respray a couple of years ago. Some of the clear coat is peeling, obviously, on the hood. Grill surround deleted, courtesy of a previous owner, or maybe a couple owners before him. Rocker's not in bad shape. Bed is in really good shape. There's one spot behind the driver's side taillight. I'll show you guys that in a minute. This cover is going to come out. I don't even think it's for this truck. Looks like somebody cut the bed rail covers off. Tailgate's not bad. Here's the shot I was talking about before. Somebody blasted the quarter panel right above the taillight there. But overall, not too bad. And this is the guy who helped make the poor financial decision. This is my buddy Steve from
Hey, what are you doing in my backyard? And what are you doing by my truck?
I was just showing him the new project, the 95 Saturn, the pride of the fleet.
That's right, small block Chevy, twin turbo.
Bringing you guys inside, show you the interior. What's left of it. This is the heated seat. Somebody just turned it up a little too high, so the cover's gone. Gauge bezel is inside, but obviously not attached. Here's possibly the best part. Stick shift and a man pedal. And then if your left foot gets tired, you also have the automatic option up here. So you can do either one. That's going to be an issue. Door panels need a little bit of work. The carpet retired a couple years ago, so no longer here. Let's pop the hood. We don't need that. So, just basic small block Chevy. Has an aluminum intake, headers, factory Acorn options, HEI. It's pretty standard stuff, but it should be a good project, and we're looking forward to getting started.
No, we're not.
Alright, most important thing when trying to get a vehicle running, obviously you start at the tailgate. That's not true, but I want a workspace, and this thing is stuck closed. So let me see what we could do here. In worst case, I'll just snap the mechanism off with the vice grips. Alright, you want to make sure to get as much of that in your mouth and eyes as possible, and then continue working. Alright, all is right with the world. We have a workbench. So spent a couple shekels at the parts store today. We got a carb rebuild kit. 2 cans of wasp killer, some spark plugs, and then some carb studs to jam into the intake manifold that the bolt holes are all screwed up in. So Steve's going to start rebuilding the carburetor. I'm going to start breaking plugs off in the cylinder head and work on getting this thing running. All right, before I start jamming plugs in this thing, you saw it before, but there's a couple acorns on top of the engine, so I'd like to get those out before one goes into the intake, and then we can't figure out why this thing doesn't want to run. So I'm just going to go ahead and clog Steve's vacuum real quick. And once that's all cleaned up, we can start breaking some plugs. Start on this side because it's easier, I think. Probably not. Just labeling these plugs as I go. This way when they're all out, we can just look at all of them, see any potential problems, and narrow it down to a particular cylinder. Hopefully there aren't any, but if so, that tends to make it a little bit easier. I have to say, we were talking about it before, these headers seem to fit really well, but they make pulling plugs an absolute nightmare. So far, number 2 and 6 have been not a good time to get to. So I'll just move on and do the easy ones first. I never understood what the hex was for on a spark plug socket until I owned a car with headers. And if you have a car with headers, you understand. So all the plugs are out on this side. Label this last one, move on to the driver's side. Now it's probably a good time to mention that if you guys watching now enjoy this type of stuff, and by this type of stuff I mean 2 idiot friends who waste their time and money working on old stuff that should probably never be on the road again, that if you subscribe to the channel, you get to see lots more of this. We also both really appreciate it because for some reason, probably like most of you guys, we enjoy doing this stuff and haven't learned our lesson yet. And if we haven't yet, we're probably not going to. Alright, so 12 5/8 sockets later, miscellaneous wrenches, a bucket to stand on, which I've never had to do before. I feel like I'm pretty tall, and getting the last couple plugs was a nightmare, but they're all out. Like I said before, I labeled them all. Obviously very sooty. This thing was a little on the rich side, but none of the straps are broken off, so that tells us that all of the valves are probably still somewhat in the position that they're supposed to be in. And the big thing is no rust or milky, oily substance, which also tells us that the head gaskets will probably hold on till, I don't know, at least we pull this thing out of the driveway. So with that done, I get to do it all over again. I'm going to grab our new plugs. We'll gap them. Generally like 35 thousandths on plugs for an HEI distributor. You could probably go 42. I'm going to go 35 just to be safe. So yeah, I'll grab those, gap them, start struggling to put the new ones in. I think I'm going to launch these into Steve's backyard so he finds them with the lawnmower at some point and maybe fires it through the windshield of one of his cars. But my luck, my 55 Chevy is actually on the other side of that shed right now because if you've been watching my channel, we've been working on the 56, so that car is being stored here. So maybe I'll just throw these in the garbage before I'm replacing glass, because that's no fun. Alright, so you guys remember when we opened up the tailgate so we'd have a workspace that we didn't get to use? It's because this guy's using it, but he is rebuilding this Edelbrock carb that's on here. Or I think he's rebuilding it, I don't know. You know what you're doing?
Someone call the authorities. He won't let me stop working. My hands are bleeding.
Back to work. So hopefully this will be done in a couple minutes. Right, a couple minutes? Yep. Yeah, a couple minutes, guys. So hopefully this will get back put back together. Plugs will be in, and then yeah, as long as we have spark. Last I checked, we have air. I'm still breathing. So fuel, air, spark, and hopefully crank this thing up. Okay, so new plugs ready to go in. Like I said, 35 thousandths. I have my feeler gauge here to check. That one looks good. If any of them need to be closed up or anything like that, I'm going to go ahead and use this. And the plug basically just gets placed inside there. And then you run that piece in, and that'll close up the strap closer to the electrode. Most of the time, these are good out of the box, but it's the one time you don't check that the guy at the parts store, or when you threw them in your truck leaving the parts store, that they fell on the strap, closed it up, and now you're trying to figure out why you're only running on 5 or 6 cylinders. So I always check them, but I'm going to go through the rest of these, make sure they're all within spec, and then we'll go ahead and run them back in. Alright, so with all of our plugs gapped, we can start putting these back in. Start them off by hand, just get them as tight as we can. We'll also buy us a little bit more room. Try to tighten them back up. Also forgot to mention, and it might be in Steve's video because he actually remembered to bring his camera when we picked this truck up, but we did verify that this engine is not stuck. It has oil in it. It turned over nice and free. So hopefully no surprises when it comes to that. But just thought I would mention it because we're doing all this work and have yet to make mention as to whether or not this thing actually turns over free. But it does. Alright, all plugs are back in, wires are back on, everything's tight. Steve's finished rebuilding the carb. Got some fresh studs in the intake manifold. That one's going to need a little bit of work. Of course, that's where the throttle bracket goes, so that's probably why those holes are a little gummed up. But we'll get that driven into the intake a little bit more, put the carb on this thing, some battery and fuel, and hopefully we're in business.
Doesn't hit anything. That's good.
It's sitting flush too, it's not like rocking back and forth or anything. It looks good.
It's on there. I was afraid it was going to hit this vacuum.
Is that a gap there or no?
No, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's carbon. It's
Oh,
metal.
okay. Yeah, I could probably get one in the back corner here if you want to do two.
Get rid of those two.
Alright, so the carb is on, bolted down. This is the old fuel feed from the pump. We're not going to hook that up right now. We'll just plumb it into a bottle or on the floor to, you know, lubricate these dry leaves that are on the ground. We'll probably feed it off of a bottle now because we don't want to pump whatever is in these 2 tanks into the carb that was just rebuilt. So we'll get a fuel source, we'll get a battery, and then see if this thing lights off. Alright, so I'm just going to run to the auto parts store real quick to grab a new battery. The auto parts store out here look a little odd because it looks exactly like another square body. I'm just going to rob it out of this Blazer. Now, if you haven't checked Steve's channel out, you should definitely do so. This is a project he's working on now. And a little odd, but it's a Kubota diesel engine in a mid-80s Blazer. This is coming out. He actually just got finished building a nice 6-liter for this thing, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, we're going to rob his battery. Dude, you wouldn't believe the line at the auto parts store.
Got right in?
In and out, like 2 minutes. I was very surprised. I'll grab the receipt for this. We'll just settle up on that later. It was like 200 bucks. All right, so our brand new store-bought battery is installed. Steve's gonna hit the key real quick and see if we can get any life out of this thing.
With headlights?
Oh, headlights work.
All right, we got power. We're just gonna send this thing to the moon now. Whoa, there's a buzzer in here. Apparently I should put my seatbelt on.
All right, so as you guys saw, we have headlights. The engine cranks over. We're gonna check a couple fluids because we didn't do that before, and then throw some fuel at it. All right, so we have fluids. Obviously the engine turns over. Hoping we have spark, but I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, LMC Truck Parts, for the brand new 85 K10 fuel tank that we have here. So we're gonna go ahead and hose that carburetor down, turn the key, and hope for the best.
I'm assuming this will be one of many tests, so spark test number 1. Clear prop. Oh my God, it cranked up.
All right, well, that was pretty surprising. We were definitely expecting some more issues with that, but that's a good thing. So, because I'm working with Smokey the Bear here today, and he's worried about a fire. I don't know why. It's not like anything he owns is near this thing that could go up in flames at any second.
Nor is it worth any money.
The insurance company doesn't know that. So we're going to take an extra precaution here, and we're going to route the fuel that could potentially shoot out of that bottle at any second that's currently aimed at the headers, which last I checked tend to get hot. So we're going to make it a little bit safer. Not really the trend of either channel, so we'll get a more permanent situation for that, and we might try and hook something up to the fuel inlet on the carburetor as well. This way we don't have to just pour the fuel to it every single time. All right, so while Steve is buttoning up the temporary fuel system, I'm going to focus on getting the throttle cable to work, because we can't do donuts in the backyard if you don't have a gas pedal. Now, Edelbrock sells a certain adapter that will bolt through and then takes a little cotter pin to retain the cable. We'll get one of those, but we don't have it right now. So the next best thing is a little 1032 screw and a nut. So we'll go ahead and put that on. We'll make sure that we have some sort of throttle pedal, and then hopefully we'll be ripping up some grass in a minute. Might have to grab a return spring for that before we wind up in the bushes. Alright, so fuel system's getting wrapped up. We have the throttle cable hooked up and the return spring. We found the return spring in the garage. Didn't have a bracket in there, so that's when you go into your friend's toolbox, steal a maxi fuse, bend it up, bolt it to the intake, and Bob's your uncle.
Oh, I cannot move the throttle. That is the tightest return spring on the planet.
It's not ideal, but it works.
Sounds great.
Finally!
Apparently, a rebuilt carburetor is better than the one that's just sitting on the chair. Did you check to see if we had water in this thing?
I was only responsible for oil.
Oh my God. Also, I think it's electrocuting me somehow.
And it's actually idling on its own. That's awesome.
Needs water. from the tank is touching the header.
Don't think any of the gauges work.
Really quiet. None of the neighbors mind.
No one will ever know you're leaving the house.
Did you want to shut them? I'll shut these off or get some water in it.
Alright, it's a new day. You can tell because I got a fresh, clean shirt on. So where we left it off last night, obviously we had the truck running. We had made some stuff work for the throttle cable, and we did that because we really wanted to drive the truck last night, but because it was open headers, getting late, didn't work out. So grabbed a couple things from the parts store, some fresh fuel line, throttle return spring bracket. So I'm just going to bend Steve's maxi fuse back, put that back in his toolbox. He'll never know. We can get rid of the 1032 bolt holding the throttle cable on. And to quiet this thing down a little bit, grab some header gaskets and some bolts. And those are in the bed of the truck, so we're going to bolt those up just to quiet it down. But we'll end up making a proper exhaust for this truck later on. The other thing we determined, so this truck has dual fuel tanks. Obviously one on the driver's side, one on the passenger side. Alright, and to determine which fuel tank was being used, we just plumbed some compressed air into the inlet and basically just listened to which tank. And this truck is a lefty, driver's side tank only. We did find a switch underneath. The passenger side is disconnected, so that'll probably be something else that we try to fix a little bit later down the line. But for now, to get the truck running on its own and to get rid of the fire hazard that's currently ratchet strapped to the fender, we're going to hook the fuel system back up and see what comes out of that tank. Ready for Barrett Jackson. So put the new throttle cable return spring bracket on, put the correct adapter for the throttle cable. We're gonna have to replace the throttle cable. It's stiff, like Weekend at Bernie's stiff, but for now it should be enough to get this thing running and driving, and we'll replace that at a later time. Steve is connecting the fuel system back up to the driver's side tank right now, and I'm going to go underneath, install our header collector gaskets and those mufflers. Alright, so I got the driver's side header muffler on. It still kind of hits the cross member. Like we mentioned before, it's just temporary. The passenger side is going to be a bit of an issue though, because the drive shaft for the transfer case goes through the cross member and runs right into where the exhaust should be. But that's not a problem because we got Chip Foose on the case over here. Perfect.
Oh yeah, it's extra special bendy. Okay, it's not moving at all. This should work fine.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. The guy who built a complete twin turbo kit for his Nova Inside is now hacking up rusty flex pipe.
Guys, we all start somewhere.
But yeah, we usually don't go back.
But I have the Benjamin Button disease, so.
All right. We ended up swapping out the driver's side front tire for something off the Blazer because the size was a little bit closer. We didn't want to risk damaging the transfer case. Went over all the lug nuts, topped off the coolant, ran it a couple minutes ago, checked for leaks. Definitely much more quiet with the exhaust on. I think that's about it. I think we're ready to take this thing for a spin. Well, it was a short trip. He had some clutch issues, so obviously that's why I'm wedged underneath the dashboard right now. So
I'm comfortable though, so
yeah,
that's
Steve's good, so.
I'm good. Brakes, I'm again trying to steer down. I feel like I'm like about 9 inches lower than you are.
Well, it's that rich Corinthian leather that wore away.
She's a beaut!
So you probably can't hear me right now, but Steve is behind the wheel. Got the clutch issue figured out. There's a long bolt that goes through the entire assembly, and it was missing a washer. So the head of the bolt was actually stuck in the clutch pedal, and it was allowing it to come off. And it was also getting jammed on the fuse panel because this truck was originally an automatic. So we're gonna go fuel this thing up, maybe treat it to a car wash, and I think at some point we're gonna switch, and I'll see if I can break it.
We don't. Probably no brake lights either.
No, the brake lights worked.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Unless you cut the wire.
Oh yeah, I don't even know what I cut.
Alright, so Steve and I switched. I'm gonna give this thing a shot. Maybe I'll stall it here, and the battery's probably not charging because we never checked, and then we'll have to call Steve's wife for a jump.
I'm like 30 inches taller than I was a minute ago, sitting on this side. Forward or filming?
If you guys are watching this, this is your chance to go on Facebook Marketplace, take an exceptionally long road trip with a good friend of yours, buy an absolute piece of garbage, get it running, and then drive it around the neighborhood.
Guys, come on now. We're not the only ones that can make mistakes. You guys can join in on the fun too.
So that's going to do it for this video. We had the truck out for about a half hour, 45 minutes. Unfortunately, the car wash was closed, so that's going to have to wait till the next one. I had a really, really good time hanging out with my buddy, getting this truck going. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. Please consider subscribing, and there's going to be some more on this truck, and we'll be back on the 56 soon.